Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up to Gothenburg once again, or Göteborg as you'd say in Swedish, and as I've told you many a time, that is the craft beer city when it comes to Sweden. There's a whole host of little craft breweries popping up there, and you'll find some very high quality beer. And this is another brewery who I've known of for a little while, but I've never actually been able to get a hold of their beers down here in southern Sweden. So very curious to try this one today, and as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, for this review we are going to go for the first time to Två Feta Grisar, basically two fat pigs, and we're having a taste of their Wästkust, which is a 6.5% IPA. This is one of two beers that they do in cans from what I gather, and this one was released through the local assortment. I got this one on the 1st of March 2019 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. So looking forward to this one, and as I mentioned earlier, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Två Feta Grisar. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Två Feta Grisar then. So Två Feta Grisar was founded back in 2013 by a group of friends: Joachim Knapp, Stefan Bergström, Daniel Vazanak and Robert Olsson. But the company is based in Gothenburg, particularly in the industrial area of Arlid, which is a little bit to the north of the city itself. But as I mentioned, they started out just as a kind of home brewing group, if you like, but it turned out that the beef eater in the city wanted to have the beers on tap, and this really motivated all of them to actually go for it and start up their own company and get their beers out there. So the name of the brewery apparently comes from a bit of a joke that they had one time when they were out in a local pub. There was two rather large guys went outside, and they kind of made a joke about the two fat pigs leaving or something like this, and they thought, you know, they just kind of went with this. It became a running joke from what I gather, and you know, they decided this was a very original name for the brewery, so they went with it and they've stuck with it. But quickly they realised after starting up the brewery how time intensive it was to actually run it, and so Daniel, who is now running the brewing side of things, he decided that he would work 50% of the time in the brewery. He was the first one to be employed by the brewery as such, and he worked 50% of his time at his regular job as well. And the others kind of just chipped in and did what they could, but mainly it was Daniel Vazanak who was doing the kind of brunt of the work in the brewery in the beginning, if you like. But the first brewery they had was just a small 1,000 litre kit, and this was in the Arlid industrial estate area, as I mentioned earlier. And they had it was actually very variable. The article that I was reading on beernews.sa said they could brew as small as 300 litres on this brew kit, and they started off with that brew kit and 3 separate tanks to ferment the beers in. But in 2017 they went into a partnership with Business and Sports Club, and so Pontus Henrys joined the company as the CEO, and they expanded the brewery capacity. They took over the room next door to where they were actually situated, and this took them up from producing around 35,000 litres of beer per year to 60,000 litres of beer per year. But they also opened up their brewery pub in August of 2018, and then Lucas Thorson joined the company at this point as well. And as of early 2019, when I was checking out Rate Beer and Untappd, they've produced around 30 different types of beer, all of which are different styles. They've got imperial stouts, they've got red ales, they've got ambers. I think there's a brown ale in there as well as various IPAs and pale ales and stuff like that. They've also, interestingly, I was reading on beernews.sa that they have they're working on an app at the moment for their brewery, which gives you all the rundowns of the latest beers and things like that. I tried to have a little look at it before, you know, before making the video, of course, but I couldn't find the app, the download thing on the app, when I was looking on Play Store and stuff like that, and it wasn't on the website as far as I could see either. But they apparently have an app coming out where it tells you all about the different beers and all about the different events and things that are going to come out at the brewery. Another two very cool points about this brewery is that they have brewed a beer for BK Häcken, which is one of the Gothenburg football teams. I think they are in the Allsvenskan just now, but my team back home in Scotland, Dunfermline, we played them in Europe. I think it was back in 2006 or 2007, something like that. And it was funny because my team had just been relegated from the Scottish Premier League, and BK Häcken had just been relegated from the Allsvenskan as well. And this was very unique that two relegated teams met each other in a European competition. And they've also produced a beer, an Imperial Stout, for Sabaton Open Air as well. You know, Sabaton, awesome Swedish metal band, absolutely love them. So yeah, a lot of very cool points to make about this brewery, but they are yet another one of the numerous Gothenburg breweries that are popping up, and it was one that I'd wanted to try for quite a little while, but this is the first opportunity that I got to do it. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Två Feta Grisar just now. As always, if you know some more interesting facts about these guys, comment them in the section below. I tend to use beernews.se to get all the facts for the videos and things like that, so if you're interested in keeping up to date with the Swedish beer scene, that's where to do it. And if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can of course check out the brewery website, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that as well. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as you can see, quite a nicely presented can, this one. I do like the Två Feta Grisar symbol on this one. I think it's quite a unique label, and as I say, this is one of the ones, it's one of the more unique brewery names that you're going to find here in Sweden actually. But you can see Wästkust Pale Ale, Wästkust India Pale Ale rather, coming in at 6.5% ABV. So it tells you a little bit about the brewery on the side here, and I think it's basically telling you what I actually told you in the history part of the video, if you like. But it says this one is supposed to give you a lot of it's got a lot of American type citrus in it. But yeah, no, a little bit. If you want to pause it and have a little read at this, I'm just trying to hold it steady for you. There you go. You can have a little look at that if you want to. But yeah, 6.5% West Coast IPA, this one. So without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. 330ml can, and as I mentioned to you earlier, this one was released through the sort of local assortment in Systembolaget on the 1st of March 2019. So very curious to have my first taste of a beer from Två Feta Grisar. Look at the head on that actually, that's going to be very nice. Quite an aggressive pour, I have to say, I've put on this one. But yeah, and I'll tell you straight away, you get some lovely fruity notes out of this. I heard that this beer is hopped with Citra and Centennial. So Citra, of course, gives you those lovely mangoey notes with a lot of kind of complexities to them. You can get lychee, you can get lemon lime, you can get gooseberries, whereas the Centennial gives you a very nice sort of lemony sherbet type citrus as well. So as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow, kind of straw golden colour, if you like. It almost, you know, it's almost a bit like a German Helles in terms of its colour, which is a bit surprising. Usually IPAs can be just a little bit more amber than this, especially the West Coast ones. The yellowy colour is only something I've seen come in a little bit since we've had the New England IPAs, but you know, it looks pretty damn nice, I have to say. The head on this beer is lovely too, a solid 2 fingers of a frothy, I would say perfect white head, or actually, yeah, no, it is perfect. It just looks a little bit more creamy on the top, I would say, so I'll stick with my original prognosis. Pure white head on this one. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just moving up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, very, very nice looking beer. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this one, but it has a little bit of haze to it. But it's definitely a haze more akin to the West Coast IPAs rather than the New England ones. The haze for days, as the English beer tubers like to call them. But yeah, really nice looking beer, this one. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on. Yeah, so yeah, this beer, the aroma is actually a little bit more along the lines of a pale ale, I would say. It's quite mild in its aroma. To me, it comes across as mainly quite grassy. You can pick out a little bit of the pale malt in there. It has a little bit of that white bready kind of quality to it. You can pick out that there's a little bit of a biscuity sweetness as well. But yeah, the Centennial for me is coming out quite nicely. You can smell there's a sort of lemony sherbet sort of thing to this one. It's almost a little bit like a lemongrass actually, which is quite interesting. Maybe hear my stomach, I'm getting hungry just wanting to taste this beer. But yeah, I would say you can pick up a little touch of the mangoes and things that you would expect from the Citra, but to me the Citra's not all that prominent. It really is a little bit more about the Centennial. Of course, they could have changed the hop bill, and maybe it's just that I'm picking up lemons from this beer. But on the green side of the hops, definitely a nice little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity to the beer. A lot of nice grassiness, as I say, the lemony sherbet type aromas are mixing in with that quite well. And the malt base is kind of biscuity and bready too. So yeah, it's, to me, this one, in terms of its aroma, it does smell a little bit more like a paleo, and it doesn't quite have some of the kind of caramelly notes that you would expect from the Wästkust IPA that you can sometimes get, but it does smell like a really nice, quite fresh beer, if you like. But that said, I'm reviewing this one for you. I think it's the 9th or 10th of losing track of the days. It's the weekend basically. It's the 9th or 10th of March 2019, and this beer was only released on the 1st, and I got it a couple of days after that through the Systembolaget orders. But yeah, let's just have a taste of this guy and see how we get on. But to summarise the aroma, very nice, kind of fresh, grassy, sort of lemony IPA, this one, but a little bit of mango and things like that, perhaps indicating there's a bit of citrus or something in there, maybe even a little bit touch of papaya or something out of this one too. It does have a little tropical edge to it, to be fair. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get stuck into the beer. So this one is the Wästkust, basically the West Coast IPA from Två Feta Grisar in Arvid, just a little bit to the north of Gothenburg, Sweden's beer city these days. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah. That's actually a pretty nice beer, I have to say. They've done a good job of this. One thing I just thought about when I took my first sip there is, I remember when I reviewed a beer from Stigbergets, and one thing my Swedish friend pointed out to me, who's also very into beer, one of the things, there seems to be a thing in Sweden where they talk about the West Coast IPAs, if you like, as being from the west coast of Sweden, which is kind of interesting. And it has almost, maybe, I don't know if you can argue that there's a little bit of a sub-style in there, and I'm just thinking about this beer and the flavour, just the flavour that's kind of come into my mind there. It does, you know, these West Coast Swedish IPAs, if you like, they do seem to have this kind of light, sort of bready malt base to them, and they don't have the caramel. So, you know, I'm thinking, when I think West Coast, I think about the West Coast US kind of craft beers, but there almost is a sub-style in Sweden just now of the West Coast IPAs and things, like the West Coast Swedish IPAs, if that makes sense. And when I think about the flavour profile of this beer, it actually does make a little bit of sense, actually. So yeah, let's kind of focus on that a little bit. Well, what I'll say about this beer is, straight off the bat, I like this one. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. So, you know, have a go at this for yourself and just see what you think. This is a very nice kind of, how do we describe it? It's quite a sort of bready and smooth IPA, this one, but it does have a little bit of a hoppy bite to it, but by no means is this beer going to blow the head off you in terms of its IBU count and things like that. It's not a West Coast American IPA, this one. It's definitely more of a West Coast Swedish IPA, which is a little bit more akin, I would say, to the New England ones, but at the same time, it's almost like a little bit like a hybrid of a West Coast IPA, a little bit more bitterness, a little bit more kind of bready and things like that. But yes, there are elements of the New England style in this one, which is quite interesting. It's just strange that it just came to me in the first sip that I had of this beer. So yeah, the middle of your palate with this one then, I would say you get a nice sort of bready quality that just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, I think I would say, a pale malty base, and then you get a slightly thicker breadiness just on top of that. In the middle of your palate, there's definitely a little touch of a kind of biscuity sweetness coming out to this one. It's not quite as sweet as caramel, but it really reminds me almost of that slightly corny, syrupy type thing that you get. It's almost like the stuff that holds a McVitie's digestive biscuit together. It really reminds me of that. The malt base has a very nice balance between being quite light and malty, and also having a bit of a, also having a little bit of sweetness to it. It's nice the way they've put this together. On the hoppy side of things as well, this beer comes across as very, very fresh. I like the way that they've combined the flavours in this one. To me, again, I'm pretty sure they'll have used Centennial in this, because it has that really distinctive lemony, almost sherbety lemon quality coming out of it. So yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, teeny little bit of earthiness, but as you come further forward along the sides of your tongue, it's got a nice floral aromatic note to it. It's almost a little touch spicy actually, so a little touch of a floral aromatic note on the front corners of the palate, but a bit spicy behind that, to be honest with you. It becomes more and more spicy the further you go into the aftertaste, and then round the front curve of the palate you've got that nice lighter grassiness there, and of course behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And for me, this one again I think is all about the Centennial. It did say on it said on Rate Beer when I was looking this one up, because I always like to know the hop profiles, otherwise you play a little bit of a kind of guessy thing. I always like doing that in these videos. But yeah, to me this one I don't think there's Citra in this one. I don't think they have used the Citra in this. It said on Rate Beer or Untappd when I checked the ratings of the beer out that it was it had Citra and Centennial in it, but to me this one comes across as being more Centennial rather than anything else. So yeah, it's a big lemony citrusy quality that's coming out of this one for me. Although that said, there is a little touch of like a more tropical element to this beer. There could be a little bit of a kind of passion fruity note to this one a little bit, maybe even a little bit of papaya the further you go into the aftertaste as well. So there could be a little touch of Simcoe or maybe Galaxy or something like that in here. But overall, to me, this comes across as a very nice, easy drinking IPA, this one, and it is quite reminiscent of the West Coast Swedish IPAs. I do think it's definitely leaning towards that. It reminds me a little bit of the West Coast IPA that you get from Stigbergs. It's very similar in its kind of feel to this beer. The other thing I'll point out about this one is I always like to have a little look at the ratings that these beers get on Rate Beer and stuff like that. And as I always say, Rate Beer, take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, because it can be wrong, and it is an American dominated site as well. This beer actually only had a rating of 31 when I checked it on Rate Beer 2, and that's absolute bollocks. This is actually a pretty nice IPA. It should be rated far higher than that. On Untappd, I think it was like 3.8 or something like that this beer had, and that's kind of that is more a fair rating, I would say, actually. 3.8 on the Untappd kind of scale. Untappd is a far more fair resource, I guess you could say, for this beer, or for beer reviews in general, but that 31 rating that it has on Rate Beer is absolutely bollocks. This is a nice one for me, and if you like the Centennial hop, then this is one I think you are going to really enjoy. If you like a nice big, almost lemony IPA, it's almost got I think there's a little touch of a limey quality coming out of this one. There could be a little bit of Equinaut or something in here, now that I think about it, because the further you go into the aftertaste, the beer does become a little bit more limey, which is very, very nice. But yeah, it's a very fresh, kind of lemon, limey, grassy, floral type of IPA, this, but they've done a nice job of this, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this beer again, or to try some of their other beers. I want to try something from the darker side of the spectrum, pardon me, from these guys in the future. I always think that gives you a good measure of brewery, something from the light side and something from the dark side, but this I think they've done a damn good job with. I'd be curious to know if they've changed the recipe actually since they've moved it into the cans. From what I gather, the canned releases from Två Feta Grisar are quite a recent thing. So yeah, they've done a good job of this one, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say mid-bodied beer. Yeah, mid-bodied beer. Carbonation's quite smooth on this one. It's leaning towards the oily side of things in terms of its mouthfeel, although that said, it does have a little bit of wetness to it. The malt base, like I said, is very, very smooth. More leaning towards the smooth side of things, but it has a little bit of graininess the further into the aftertaste you go, and there's also a touch of sweetness in the middle of the palate too. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness. I would guess that this one is somewhere around the 40 IBU mark, maybe a little bit. No, I would stick with 40. I think there's about 40 IBUs in this beer, and then it has a nice fruity side of things. It's not a juicy fruit, it's actually quite a drying fruit, if that makes sense. It's more a lemon. This beer really, to me, is sort of lemon lime, but it does have some kind of tropical complexities to it as well. So if I had to guess the hops in this, I would say Centennial and maybe a little bit of Equinox, something like that. But they've done a good job with this beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So it was cool to finally get around to trying a Gothenburg brew that I'd heard of, but just never been able to get a hold of their beers. So if you like Centennial, and I guess maybe Equinox, I'm guessing that there's Equinox in this one, I'm pretty sure there's Centennial in here. But yeah, if you like that hop and you like a nice big lemon limey IPA, then this is one I think you really are going to enjoy. So let's leave it at that for this one. Another nice IPA, and it's cool to try yet another one of the numerous Gothenburg breweries. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Två Feta Grisar as well, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point in the near future, since their beers are available here in the south of Sweden as well. But thanks again for watching. This one is the Wästkust India Paleo IPA from Två Feta Grisar in Aarhus, just a little bit to the north of Gothenburg here in Sweden. A nice beer, this one, so go and try it for yourself. Until the next time, it's landed just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Skål!